words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. On Tuesday evening at their monthly fireside chat, the men's group tried to answer the question, what's the difference between being nice and being kind? After we kicked the question around for a little bit, it was concluded that being nice generally involves telling someone what they want to hear, and being kind generally involves telling someone what they need to hear. In other words, being nice generally seeks to make one feel good, while being kind generally seeks to make someone or help someone understand the truth, even if it doesn't make them feel so good. After the conclusion of the conversation, one of the guys asked, "Hey guys, does this outfit make me look fat?" That didn't actually happen, but it would have been funny if it did. Telling someone the hard truth is often the kindest thing we can do. Telling someone what they want to hear by avoiding the truth can be the unkindest thing we do. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said it like this: "Nothing can be more cruel than the leniency that abandons one to their sin, while nothing can be more compassionate or kind than the severe rebuke which calls the Christian back from sin." Now, our conversation was prompted by an article that included the phrase, "Jesus was never all that nice, but always kind." In today's lesson, the not-so-niceness of Jesus and his eternal kindness is on display. The lesson begins with James and John asking, "Hey, Jesus, do us a favor." Jesus says, "Well, it depends on the favor." Emboldened, James and John demand, "We want to sit at your right hand and your left hand when you come into glory." Now, after pointing out their failed logic, Jesus asks them a question. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink? In other words, are you able to suffer death for the sake of truth? Can you die for the sake of truth? They blindly answer, "Of course." Jesus concludes his conversation with James and John by giving them the hard truth. He doesn't sugarcoat it. His primary goal isn't to make them feel better. Rather, Jesus respects them enough to tell them what's really going on. You might say that out of his kindness, Jesus says, if you want to follow me, then you must be willing to suffer and die for my sake and for the sake of the gospel. Now, this teaching comes on the heels of the third and final passion prediction, something that James and John and the rest of the disciples frankly do not understand. They're still thinking about ivory towers and 24/7 room service. They still think Jesus is going to recruit a great army to take Rome and kick them out of Jerusalem, or at least send plagues upon them like Moses did in the days of old. So again, Jesus has to have a talk with them. He sits them down and talks about the true nature of the kingdom. At this point, the disciples have only seen the blueprint that Jesus has laid out for them, a blueprint that has been seen through teachings, in miracles, in healings, in exorcisms. The kingdom of heaven favors the poor and the lonely, the outcast and the afraid. The kingdom of heaven puts the last first and the first last, gives sight to the blind. The kingdom of heaven is led by those who serve. While this heavenly kingdom sounds great on paper, especially to these lowly disciples who've been plucked out of obscurity, the kingdom of heaven is not compatible with the kingdoms of this world. In order for the kingdom of heaven to be rooted in this earth, the kingdoms of this world must be demolished. The kingdoms of this world must fall in on themselves. And this renovation project will be very costly, and nothing less than the death of the Son of Man will be required. Jesus ends today's lesson by articulating the difference between the two kingdoms. In the kingdoms of this world, greatness is defined by how many servants one has. And in the kingdom of heaven, greatness is defined by how many people one serves. In order to rise to the top in our kingdom, you have to put yourself first. In order to rise to the top in the kingdom of heaven, you have to put God and others first. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. I don't believe this ransom is meant to appease an angry God. I don't think we're sinners in the hand of an angry God. I also don't believe this ransom is a deal that God makes with the devil. Instead, I believe this ransom is paid to release us from being held captive by the lies of the world. It's meant to release us from lies that tell us that we have to climb over others in order to get to the top. Like the centurion who says, truly this man was God's son after Jesus' crucifixion, the cross is a place where the lies of the world are exposed and the truth of the gospel is revealed. Nothing less than the crucifixion of the Son of Man will release us from the world's lies and open our eyes to the truth that putting God and others first is the way to abundant life, and that putting ourself first is the way to isolation and death. Ironically, by putting the Son of Man to death is what gets the message out about the kingdom. Putting Jesus to death doesn't silence his message. Rather, it amplifies the truth of the kingdom and further reveals the corruption inherent in every human system and institution and even every human heart. The cross is the proverbial crowbar and sledgehammer that pulls up and knocks down the kingdoms of this world. And the resurrection is the beginning of the renovation project, the beginning of implementing God's blueprint that Jesus' life and ministry reveal, the beginning of creating a world where the least and the last and the lost are lifted up, a world where the servants are greatest of all. Now, Jesus is going to complete this project with or without you. In fact, has already completed this project. My hunch is that Jesus wants you to be on his construction team. I also suspect that you want to be on his team. That's why you're here, and you are on his team. Jesus wants our church community to be on his team. And before we give excuses on why we can or we're not good enough, remember that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. We talked about that this morning with the story of Moses. During this annual giving campaign, Holy Habits, Putting God First, check out our new ministry magazine called Formed to Serve. See how Church of the Ascension is working to implement the blueprint of God's heavenly kingdom on earth, a blueprint that so many of you are already involved with. Take a look at our narrative budget to see how your pledge dollars, your gifts, help make this blueprint a reality in our parish and in our community. And as you look at these resources, ask God to show you where you need to put God first in your life. What part of your life needs to be set in front of the cross of Jesus Christ? What part of your life needs to be demoed so that you can begin to serve Christ as Christ serves you? After all, cultivating holy habits, or putting God first, will demand that you sell some of the stock you've invested in the kingdoms of this world and reinvest them in the kingdom of heaven. At first, this reinvestment might seem foolish, and well, it is. According to remember what St. Paul said? He said, the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. During this stewardship season or giving season, every year I feel a lot of extra pressure to be nice. I don't want to upset anyone when they have a pledge card in their hand. However, I'm reminded that I'm called to be more than nice. I'm also called to be kind, to tell you the truth about your relationship with money and with wealth and status. That said, giving season isn't just about funding a budget. Yes, we do that. That's sort of the practical nature of it. But giving season is also about helping you come to terms with the fact that striving for money and wealth and status is one of the biggest obstacles between us and God. I know it's one of the biggest obstacles that I have between myself and God. Jesus said, you cannot serve God and wealth. Like we heard last week with the story of the rich young ruler, we can do everything right, but still fail to live in the kingdom of heaven. We can go to Sunday school, we can go to church every week, we can serve at the local food kitchen, we can be honest in our daily life and living. We can do all these things, but if we do not let go of our money, remember that it belongs to God and not ourselves. If we can let go of our money for the sake of implementing God's blueprint on earth, then I don't think we can truly know what it is like to trust God with all that we are and with all that we have. If we can't let go of our money, or even a fraction of it, then I'm not sure we can let go of the illusion that we control our life, that we control our destiny. That's just a lie the world is feeding us. If we are unable to let go of our money in any significant or meaningful way, then I'm not sure we can be free to trust the promise of God that says, who grants our every need. I know this might not be the news that you wanted to hear today, but this is the news that you need to hear today. Amen.